Morning, everyone, and welcome, a very warm welcome actually to Race Equality Week. Where Race Equality Matters, and today's workshop is Safe Space, How to Do It Right workshop. If you're meant to be somewhere else, please stay here because we hope you can learn and be part of a massive collaboration. So firstly, thank you for coming. If we just go to the next slide, please, Nish. For those that are listening, there's a cartoon up on screen. Okay, thank you. We debate whether we should have this or not, but I think our observation is lots of organizations were making gestures and talking about how well we're doing and we're doing okay. But, you know, if you ask the people that matter, is it really working? And people may be trying to do the right thing, but it's not always coming out right. Next slide, please, Nish. Thank you. As many of you should know, or hopefully all of you know, this is Race Equality Week, the first one in the UK. And the focus is time for talking is over. Now it's time to act. It's all about meaningful action and makes an impact. You can see on the right-hand side some of the activities that we provide, toolkits and resources and training like this: Safe Space, Big Promise, the digital badge. I said some people have got the backdrops already and you can put it on social media icons. But also importantly, we know lots of organizations have been working on race, especially in recent months. Do your own thing. We've now got over 1,800 organizations. Yes, 1,800 organizations now are part of Race Equality Matters and Race Equality Week movement. So if everyone does something, imagine the impact it will have. We believe we're reaching, through these organizations alone, including yourselves, about 3 million employees across the UK, which is fantastic. So thank you for all being part of it. Next slide, please, Nish. So I'm Javed Thomas, co-founder of Race Equality Matters. The other co-founder is Raj Tulsiani from Green Park, who are sponsors and funders of this. We'll also be joined by Afrifa-Tchie, Head of Culture and Wellbeing of Mental Health First Aid England, who've been fantastic collaborators in pulling this together. And I guess my co-collaborator in the guide and the workshop is Millie Patel, who's a wonderful marketing consultant of Must Do Marketing, and you'll hear from them in due course. Next slide, please. Got to say a big thank you to our key collaborators and key funders, as you can see here: BT Lifetime Visionary Partner and DMA and HS2, who are both founding partners. We're a not-for-profit, so we do need funds. Donations and marketing and funding opportunities are available. Thank you. So today's agenda is going to be quite action-packed, but we're going to keep it going. We're going to start off with a welcome poll. And then, as you can see on the right, we've broken the big, Safe Space into 4 key phases and 11 steps. It was initially 5 and 6 steps, but then when we were testing it and getting people's input into it, it got to 11 steps. And we're saying, if you do these 11 steps, you will get it right. So where some organizations may have done similar things to this, they may have not done all 11 steps if it hasn't worked. So we'll do the first phase, and then there's a mini breakout. It's a chance for sort of 8 to 10 minutes where you guys can co-collaborate and co-create, and we'll explain more about that later. We'll then go into the second phase and another breakout, again 10 minutes. We do a third phase, a quick 1-minute poll, fourth phase, and then Q&A. We're looking to finish at 11:15. So thank you. Next slide, please. So just a bit of housekeeping. You may realize that there isn't a Q&A function here, so please put your questions in the chat. Maybe for and then what we'll do is we'll pull them out and put them to the panel if we've got time at the end. We are looking to try and do that. Everyone's on mute except when you go into the breakout rooms. So please stay on mute whilst you're doing this or listening to us. The session will be recorded. So if you don't want to be seen, you can again sort of turn your camera off. Except, as I said, in the breakout rooms, we won't be able to record that. And we recommend side-by-side speaker view. On the right-hand side is our handles. Please use any of the hashtags, Safe Space, Race Equality Week, etc. But please do follow us or connect with us if you haven't already. Thank you, Nish. So we could just do a quick poll. So if you could just quickly put your answers in there. That'd be fantastic. Brilliant. Right. So, and we'll share. So one thing we should have said, we will share the recording of this event afterwards. So again, you can share with colleagues, etc. I'll pull out just a couple of results, as you can see here, in your organisation, how well are ethnic minority colleagues listened to by senior management. So I'd say listen to a bit or not listen to is 34%. So that's 1 in 3 organisations feel they're not being listened to, etc. And another one, what do you think the purpose of safe space is? So 93% to facilitate difficult discussions, and 21% to enable ethnic minority employees to be listened to. And I'll go into that in a sec, so that's fantastic. And how confident you're understanding it. So the majority of you, which is fantastic, are new to safe space and want to find out more. So, you know, for those that thought they might be the only one, you're not alone. So you are all very welcome. Thank you. Okay, so if I close that. Okay, next slide, please, Nish. So why safe space? And so the reason this was created was 85% of race experts said senior leaders did not know what their ethnic minority colleagues wanted or required. So I guess part of that listening or understanding is a real issue. 75% of race network chairs within organizations said the PR gesturing is meaningless if proper action is not taken, and lack of action was a big issue. And the majority of race network leads and experts believe that other minority groups have more positive experience in their organizations, but primarily because of senior leadership commitment. So these key elements we've kind of pulled together to get to where we are. So Safe Space is a 2-hour facilitated dialogue. And the way it's, we looked at it is between 3 to 5 C-suite or board members to top table, and then up to 10 ethnic minority colleagues to join them. And it's split into 3 key parts. The first part is inform and educate. So or I call it education light, where the C-suite and the board members can ask questions that outside that room could be maybe seen as ignorant, offensive, or even could be racist. But in this safe space, Chatham House rules, people can they ask questions. So a common question, and I was at an event last night where we say, what's the problem or what's the issue with the term BAME? Now we know it's quite a hot topic, but maybe from these 10 ethnic minority colleagues, they can get a real sense of it. Or I use this kind of banter. Is it banter unacceptable, or is it a microaggression? But a real chance to sort of, as I said, educate light. The second bit is where the 10 colleagues bring to the table key thoughts, findings, experience of the wider population, not their own personal experience per se, even though they might feel this. So the things that we're kind of hearing is we're doing really well at entry level now, but what we're finding within 6 to 7 months, Black women tend to leave our organization, or we're doing really well at entry level, but what we find in 2 months, only 1% of us ever get a promotion. So what they do, they bring to the table sort of 4 or 5 key issues that are discussed in there. The C-suite of the board then go away and then reconvene with this group in, say, a month's time and said, you gave us 4 issues. Issue 1, we believe is really important, and Susan from the board is going to be the senior sponsor for it and champion it, and she's going to work with you, and we're going to form a task and finish group. So we're not going to give it to HR, we're not going to give it to D&I, and we're not going to give it to the network. We need a task and finish group. So you agree with us who needs to be on this, and we believe this can be sorted in 3 months. So and create an action plan for it. the other one we're going to do is tackle number 3, and David, the chief exec, is going to be the senior sponsor for this. Again, we form a different task and finish group, and this will take 12 months, but we'll have an action plan and milestones, so we know it's happening. So for the first time, the voices of ethnic minority colleagues are being listened to and understood, but more importantly, it's acted upon and transparent. So that, in a nutshell, is safe space. And it's what's key to it is it's to enable uncomfortable conversations. There will be. It's to facilitate difficult discussion, but more importantly, it needs to drive meaningful change. Thank you, Anish. So how to use the guide. The guide is primarily for the safe space project lead, so whether it's yourself or a colleague. And it's created to provide step-by-step support. It's based on research and workshops Race Equality Matters held over the summer and afterwards. And we did it in partnership with Mental Health First Aid England, because we know psychological and the well-being of people through this process is really important. It is a guide, so it's suggestions and recommendations co-created by hundreds of different people. So feel free to adapt the steps as you need it. There is one mandatory element, and that is there needs to be a facilitator in the room, and we'll talk about that later. Thank you, Nish. So the structure of the guide, in each section, under each of the steps, there's a driving force. So who's the key person responsible for that? Why that person is needed, or that role or that activity is needed? What are the key points to do it? We also have some features and some icons like ideas or links or well-being alerts. So again, it's really sort of like, I call it a bit like a roadmap, help you know where you are and where you're going. And on each section, there's a little checklist. So again, really simple, just as a refresher to remind you how to go through things. Nish, thank you. So what I will now do is I'll hand you over to Afrifa-Tchie from Mental Health First Aid England. So she'll go step 1, and we'll be going through all 11 steps with yourselves, as I said, with these workshops. But without any further ado, I'll hand you over to Amma. Thank you.
Thanks, Javed. Good morning, everyone. As Javed said, my name is Amma Afrifa-Tchie. I'm Head of People, Wellbeing and Equity at Mental Health First Aid England. And I'm just going to talk through the first phases of just talking around wellbeing and psychological safety. I think before you start any conversations and conversations of a sensitive kind, you have to make sure you're creating the right environment and a safe environment where people can feel that whatever they disclose or discuss, that they will not be penalized for it, or that they will not feel any sense of trauma or aftermath following their actual participation. So it's quite important, and we've heard the word psychological safety probably bantered around for since summer last year. But in essence, what that means is just making sure that people understand their roles and also understand their responsibilities when they are doing this workshop or this safe space. And ultimately, the sense around creating brave conversations, people will feel either intimidated or cautious if they say the wrong thing. So making sure that there is an environment that you create is a private and confidential one, but also a safe, comfortable one for them to have the conversations. So the key points to remember here is that you can create a psychological safety statement, which is signed off by the board, but in essence, that statement needs to come to life through your actions. It's how you interact and connect with the individuals that are part of this workshop, whether it's virtually or physically, and making sure that their well-being is first and foremost a priority. So that in essence means choosing the right facilitator, and through the facilitator, maybe having a sense check, or maybe that facilitator knowing a bit more about mental health and well-being and understanding how to answer the right questions, ask the right questions and sense check the room for individuals that might be either going through a crisis or not really comfortable with having conversation, and also empowering participants to know that they can call a time out during the session. So again, it might be overwhelming for some people throughout the session, and giving them the option to step out and re-engage and offer support and signpost them to the right resources is important. So it's quite critical that throughout the beginning, before you start even the process, the workshops, during the workshops and afterwards, you have well-being check-ins to find out how the individuals are feeling. I mean, research has shown that often when people of color and Black people are asked to relive their experiences, or often when we talk about race and race equality or equality overall, they are left with the burden and responsibility of having to educate teach people and tell them what they need to do. In essence, with this space, whilst they're providing their experience and input, it is not for them to take that burden, and it's not for them to lead on it. So making sure that they are safe, making sure that they are comfortable is quite critical to this, but also the participants from a board level as well, understanding what they're about to be walking into in the sense of their roles and responsibilities as leaders, and leading with empathy and compassionate curiosity is quite key. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the checklist that you should take and consider through this is provide assurance of safety, including a psychological safety statement, create a safe environment. So again, when it comes to things like virtual, because we're all kind of still working from home predominantly, most of us, is asking the question around when is a good time? What do they need in the sense of when you're creating that space to be able to have that comfortableness. So for example, often when we do these presentations, one of the things that we say is that if people are experiencing a crisis or don't feel comfortable, to message the facilitator privately. So again, knowing their options to communicate privately with individuals or with the facilitator that is facilitating the session is quite key, but also understanding that there are options to signpost them to, or if they need to switch off the cameras or switch them on again. So again, agreeing to some ground rules when you start, like we did this before we started this session, is quite critical and key, but also understanding the nature of people that are attending is very as well. The key thing around signposting people to additional support, often when we talk about mental first aid and when we train our mental first aiders, we always make sure that they know that they are not the therapists. So it's more to understand when a person is in need of help or if they're going through a crisis, to be able to support them to the right signpost and to the right resources and support, and immediately check in on them afterwards. And as I mentioned, and I can't say it enough, ensuring that you do those wellbeing check-ins, asking the right questions, and actually going beyond the how are you doing, actually critically asking, how are you feeling today? Is there anything I can do to support? Going into those more detailed questions will enable you to get the right answers from that individual, and then to enable them to signpost you. Obviously, you can signpost them to the right help. Obviously, if you haven't built a relationship with these individuals, it can be quite difficult sometimes because you're going into the room. But also what I probably would recommend is once you've identified the individuals that will be participating in this workshop, some of the wellbeing check-ins that you have in beforehand can be a bit of an introduction to say, whoever the facilitator is, I'm facilitating the session, just want to check in that everything's okay. So you already have a relationship before you go in to conduct the workshops. So I hope that all makes sense. Next slide, please. So we're going to go through our first breakout session for today. We're going to have up to 10 minutes. We will not have time to feedback, unfortunately. So these breakout sessions are more so for you to take your own individual notes of things that might come up in terms of ideas, questions, and suggestions. But I think we do have a Q&A at the end of the session anyway. So without further ado, you will have an option to join a group, which should pop out now. So if we can all please select join, and you'll be then sent into the groups.
Thank you, Nish. So I'm Millie Patel. As Javed mentioned earlier, I'm marketing consultant, and I've worked with Race Equality Matters on the Safe Space Guide. So just picking up now from step 2 and the second phase, this is about finding the right people for your Safe Space initiative. So step 2 is about identifying your Safe Space project lead. And the project lead will really spearhead the initiative and support it from start to finish. So you do need to find somebody who really wants to make a difference, make a change when it comes to race equality, who's very motivated, ideally very well connected in the organisation, and is persistent and resourceful. It's very important that you give your project lead the right information about Safe Space, what it is, and especially what it is that they're expected to do. So sharing with them the guide is really important. This is so that they can make an informed decision to take the role on. Next slide, please, Nish. Thank you. So checklist for this step: identify a suitable project lead, brief them on Safe Space, gain their agreement to be the project lead. And it's a good point as well to ask them what support and resources they might think they need at that stage. Quite early on, they might not know, but that will develop. So step 3 is about finding your senior sponsor, and it's really important to have a senior sponsor who can champion safe space, help you engage with the board and access resources if necessary. So in this case, it really does matter that your sponsor is senior and that they are influential. We've listed in the guide that there are certain qualities that you can look for in your sponsor. So somebody who may already be engaged in your D&I agenda. Give your sponsor information about safe space. And again, let them know what's expected of them as a sponsor, so that they can decide to take the role on, fully knowing what's expected of them. There is in the accompanying resource pack a role outline, so you can take that as a starting point. So identify a suitable senior sponsor, brief them on safe space, and secure their agreement to be your sponsor. I'm going to talk about steps 4 and 5. Now, just a quick point, they are interchangeable, but I'll come on to that a little bit later on. So step 4 is about consulting with your wider colleagues. This is a great opportunity, not only to raise awareness of the initiative, but also potentially to identify concerns that you might need to pick up and mitigate. And they might be concerns that you work into, for example, your psychological safety statement. But this is also a really great opportunity to highlight potential key issues that you might want to raise in the safe space session itself. So think about the questions you could ask to draw out those key issues, and use multiple channels to reach your colleagues. Give them enough time to respond. The more opportunities you give them to see the information and to engage, the greater chance that they will respond and participate. So think about the questions you want to ask your wider colleagues. Reach out to your colleagues using as many channels as you have available to you. And at this point, it's also a great point to signpost colleagues to additional support. So as Alma talked about earlier, these issues may raise concerns, memories, issues for individuals. You will have resources within your organisation, potentially through your employee support scheme, and there will be external organisations as well that you can signpost to. So step 5 is about securing your board buy-in. And now the board obviously has power to make change happen. They are critical participants to the safe space session. So we've said in the guide and on this slide to speak with the board as soon as possible, because Race Equality Week is here, but you can run safe space through the year. Think about the information your board needs in order to make a decision to run the initiative. That will vary from organisation to organisation in terms of how much detail you need to give and the way in which you give that. In the guide, we've given quite a lot of suggestions of the kind of information you could offer. For example, listing out the benefits of running the initiative, highlighting which of your competitors are taking part, being very clear about who needs to be involved and how through the initiative. But overall, be crystal clear on what you're asking of the board. 3 asks: a decision to run the initiative, a commitment from them to prepare for and participate in the session itself, and critically, commitment to take action on at least one key issue arising from the session. So the checklist for this step is to speak with your board as soon as possible, brief them on safe space, and gain their clear commitment to safe space. So those 3 asks that I outlined just now. Now, I mentioned earlier that steps 4 and 5 are interchangeable. It is up to you how the order in which you take them. If you consult with colleagues first, it's a good opportunity to gather evidence of support for the initiative and also to start understanding the key issues, so that when you put your case to the board, that's more compelling. On the flip side, if you go to your board first and then consult with colleagues, you've got the authority of senior buy-in to to gain more traction with your colleagues. So, you know, it can work either way. Now we're about to go into another breakout session, so you can talk to each other and share experience and tips on how to gain senior buy-in. So this is about steps 3 and 5, how to get your senior sponsor on board and how to gain board buy-in. As before, up to 10 minutes to discuss. You won't be expected to feedback, so take notes and please make the most of the opportunity to share with each other your experiences. Thank you.
Nish, can you give us an opportunity to go to another breakout room, please? I came out, thank you. If not, no worries.
Yeah, I'll just look into it, Javed.
Great, thank you. Yeah, good.
I was going to say, for anyone that is left in the main room, it's not compulsory for you to join a breakout room, but I do find that the conversations among peers are really helpful. So again, not by force, but if you are able to and you have got the box that's come up to say join a room, I recommend joining one if you want to.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for joining. We're just in breakout rooms at the moment. I will just prompt you to go to one of the rooms now. So if you want to join just for a brief discussion before we move on with the rest of the presentation.
Oh, thank you.
That's right.
The ones that aren't engaged on that.
Right, welcome back everybody. I hope you had good discussions in your groups. So 2 steps left in phase 2. Step 6 is about creating a task and finish group. With the best will in the world, your project lead and your senior sponsor are going to need support to run the initiative. So think about the different skills and expertise you might need in your group. It's important that it is a diverse group. If you can manage that, obviously it depends on your size of your organisation. We recommend at least 60% of your task and finish group comprises ethnic minority colleagues. It's very helpful to appoint a chairperson just to keep everything on track and in meetings to hold group members to account. And think about drafting terms of reference. It just clarifies what the group is there to do. And it makes it very clear what the roles and responsibilities are. And you'll find in the accompanying resource pack a draft terms of reference that you can take and adapt to your needs. So the checklist for this section is choose your group members, your task and finish group members, think about the skills and expertise, think about the diversity. Appoint a chairperson. In the guide, you'll see that there's a list of qualities as well for the chairperson. Make sure it's somebody who can hold people to account and keep people on track. And think about drafting terms of reference to be really clear on what the group's role is. Step 7, again, very critical to the safe space session itself, is finding your employee participants. Now, we've suggested that you aim for up to 10 ethnic minority colleagues for your session. That's to make sure that for a 2-hour session, you have a meaningful conversation and there's enough opportunity for people to talk and to be heard. So you could increase that if you've got a longer session or have multiple sessions. It's important that your group of employee participants is representative. As Javed mentioned at the beginning, they're not talking for themselves necessarily, they're talking on behalf of your wider workforce, so they do need to be representative. Make sure that your participants have the necessary information about what's expected of them, and there's more preparation they need to do to take part, which Javed will talk you through later. And think about how you reach out to your colleagues about information on how they can get involved. Think about your selection process. That will probably be very different from organisation to organisation and depending on size. So be very clear on how employees can participate, how they express interest, by when, and what the selection process is. So checklist for this step: decide your selection criteria and process, be very clear with colleagues so that they understand what that is. Use a range of channels to reach your colleagues. Select your employee participants, remembering to let people know if they've been successful or not. And again, this is a great point to signpost participants to additional support. You're raising these issues, you're making people think about issues that may be uncomfortable, maybe raising concerns. So this is a good point to signpost them to additional support. I'm going to hand over now to Javed, who will talk you through phases 3 and 4.
Thank you, Millie. And someone in the session I just went in mentioned a really good point. Actually, I think this less is more is quite crucial. So there's lots of issues going on. Just we're saying just focus on, one is a start, because lots of people are saying there's talk and no action. So one is a start, and let's work on that. And it's determining what is the most important thing at the moment. I know there's lots. If we try to do too much, it's too overwhelming. So that's something just to bear in mind in this kind of getting ready bit. So the driving force behind this is the task and finish group and all participants. So someone asked the right question. The task and finish group is all about, it's for limited time. We're going to get to X and deliver Y. So this is to get to the safe space place, etc. So to get the most from a session, when safe space happens, and we recommend it to be a 2-hour thing, there are a few things to think about in advance, so a bit of the preparation. So we mentioned earlier about finding the right facilitator. So you need someone who can manage a conversation sensitively, but also robustly. Ensure that it's kept on track, because it's going to be very easy when it gets a bit emotional that it can go different directions. But they'll also be able to check on the well-being, and I'm going to say on all parties and all individuals. I think ideally an external facilitator who's neutral and won't be influenced by anyone in the room would make most sense. We appreciate some organizations may already have internal facilitators, and that's fine. We also understand some organizations may not be in that position. So later this afternoon, with our funding partners, Green Park, are hosting a facilitator workshop. So you can go online to see that. And again, where we train people as a facilitator or give them the top tips of how to go about it, but a very crucial role. Also, is to provide a briefing and or Q&A session for the board members. So encourage them to think about the questions, we said about the education light, what's the issue with BAME, etc. So think about what do they really want to know or hear about. And we are hearing actually quite often, because they're away from it, they don't get a sense of what is really going on out there, but also maybe support them in the appropriate language, because they may be asking the right question, but in the wrong way, but they don't mean to. So let's support each other on that side. Next slide, please, Nish. Thank you. So employee participants should also prepare the key issues to raise at the session. So the way I kind of think about it, so you'd have decided as a group, and it might be part of the network, say, okay, these are the 4 key issues we want to do. And I propose we do it in like a sort of Dragon's Den style. So you talk about the issue in 2 minutes, so let's say it's about microaggressions in the workplace. This is what happened. So in 2 minutes, you can get the point across. And then, sort of next 18 or so minutes, it's a dialogue, so that, the senior leaders at board and C-suite can ask questions, and then move on to the next one, because in that 20 minutes, you should get the point. And as we said, the board then go away and talk more about it. Again, the networks, as Millie touched upon, is you may want to get some evidence from HR or do some surveys to sort of like support the case you're putting forward if you find it helpful. Meeting logistics. So again, think about the venue. So, in the future, it might be more physical venue, but virtual space also allows people from all over the country or all over the world to take part in it, and also allocate roles. You know, who's going to take notes, who's going to monitor the chat box. So we've got a few of us in the background here working this. So like you do in a normal meeting, you know, make sure we've got all bases covered. And again, the guide will show you some suggested roles. So that's the checklist. I said you'll get a copy of these slides, and it's in the guide. Next slide, please, Nish. Thank you. So the third phase is the kind of going live, so running the session. So the way we've kind of broken it down is into, you know, really briefly introductions, because we can assume most people may not know each other, and sort of setting a scene or facilitated by the facilitator, and then I said that Q&A by the board members. So that's like 20 to 30 minutes, education light, to understand. Then, as we said, your key issue 1, 2, 3, you may be able to get 4, and we're suggesting sort of 20 minutes in that or so. And then you summarize and agree next steps, which is basically, you know, the C-suite of the board to go away and then sort of come back. We've allowed time in there for mini breaks. So if we feel people may be struggling or there's need for a break, so we're suggesting it to be for 2 hours, broken down like this. We don't want it to go on to too long, but some organizations may want to do it longer, and that's fine. Next slide. Okay, so to run a session, the facilitator plays a key role in doing this. Discuss issues, summarize, and I guess what is important at the end is that the summary is, okay, these were the 4 issues you brought to us. This is what we want to do or can do, you know, just to clarify that the understanding is right. So when they go away, the senior leaders and the board, they do come back addressing, you know, what was discussed properly in that room, and agree next steps and timings. Next slide, please. So a quick poll, this will take you 30 seconds. If you could just feedback, please. Thank you. A few more to do it, then we can go. Okay, thank you, Nish. Yeah. Okay. So overall, people think that 20 minutes is just right. You know, some not sure, and some time a bit too short. Again, it's a guide and suggestion, so you can do it how you see fit. You may have other experiences of it. Do you think 30 minutes for board members to ask questions? Again, feels more or less just right. Again, it's something you can go around. Do you think 2 hours for the whole session? Again, overall feels just right. So we're conscious. I know some organizations are going to do it for a whole day, and that's fine for them. Okay, thank you, Nish. Okay, so the important bit is this is the most important bit that we feel actually in a lot of organizations doesn't take place. And someone said they've had some really good discussions with senior leaders, but what happens later? You know, there is no change. So this is where the driving force behind this is the board and the sponsor. And it's the critical part. So the board or the C-suite, they will meet and discuss and maybe go to HR for more information or look at some surveys, etc. And they need to decide which key issues to take action on. And I said it could be 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, less is better maybe initially. And they must then confirm their decision to the original safe space session participants. So if they can get together, and with this remote world, we can do it this way now. But what's important is they agree a task and finish group, and that task and finish group is likely to be different to the task and finish group that got us to where we are. You know, it's who needs to be for this. So it might be a recruitment issue, or it might be you know, a communications issue in an organization, depending what it is. But you have 5, 6 people in that group. But what's really important, that task and finish group agree an action plan. You know, we're going to do this by when, and who's going to do what, you know, real responsibility. But the senior leader is accountable. You know, he or she will be accountable for delivering this. And we recommend, for transparency and accountability, that this action plan is shared by all staff. it's important that task and finish groups do include the voice of ethnic minority employees, and if possible, actually, they should be in the majority. We know sometimes it's not possible, but think about that. And also, there's nothing to say why you don't get people from external to be involved as well, depending on it. I said, finally, look for commitment, accountability, and transparency, and keep a track on progress. So there should be a week, a weekly or a monthly update on that. Okay, so I said this is in your pack, so we can go to the next slide. So monitoring progress and impact. So the Safe Space project lead and the sponsor are the driving force behind it. It's essential to monitor progress. I think we've heard a lot of people saying, all this has been going on, but nothing's changed. But was progress monitored? And if you go off track, what's the action plan or the contingency, like any other business plan you would do? Also important to review the Safe Space session to capture the best practice and lessons learned. Because if it went well, you could do this every 3, 6, or 12 months. Why not? It's not a one-off. This is just the start. And organizations could adapt it. I'll take a commission, or for other issues. It's a concept that's important, and mental health first aid have kept us true to get it right. And it's keeping track of the board's commitments and monitoring progress. So interestingly, Green Park, I don't know if you've seen it, I think it was yesterday, have carried out some research of the FTSE 100. And the 3 top roles: CEO, the chair, and the CFO, the chief financial officer. So that's 300 people. So, and they've been doing this for about 7 years now. So for the first time ever in 7 years, at these top 3 places in the FTSE 100, there is not a single Black representative for the first time in 7 years. So where we've had in the summer all this, we must do more, Black Lives Matters, etc., etc. This is 9 months on. Not a single one of 300. And also the pipeline, the Black representation has gone from 1.4% to 0.9%. So again, meaningful action is not happening. And this is, but imagine if they had, we've got a commitment to get certain percentages or certain people in certain roles, etc. And we're going to do this in the next 12 months. So by the time this report comes out, then it will be delivered. So I think that's really important. Go to Green Park's website or follow Race Equality Matters. We share them findings with yourselves. Fantastic piece of work. So well done, Green Park. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, so if we can just do a quick poll, please. Thank you. When we've done the poll, we'll go into some Q&As. So 15 more seconds for the poll to finish. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so do you think a Safe Space addresses the issue of ethnic minority employees being listened to by senior management, a catalyst to be heard? And that I said this whole thing's all about a start, and if we can get the conversations going, but with that action, that's really important. How confident do you think in running it after this? So 36, so 44 feel very confident, so about half, and some feel a little more confident. We appreciate, you know, a lot of you at the beginning of the journey, but the guide, you'll get a copy of this video to help remind you. And then we'll create a little network that people can support each other. Do you think your organization will run Safe Space? So the majority think yes. When do you think you look to do it? So again, spread throughout the year, which is fantastic. So we'll share these findings with you, but I'm just conscious of time. So we've got about sort of just under 15 minutes to go through some Q&As. So if I just go, please put it in the chat box. So so someone's asked about this facilitator workshop later. You know, as a Green Park are covering the cost and providing it. So if you go onto our website, raceequalitymatters.com, and there's a content hub. If you go in there, events, and then you'll find it. I think, is it 2 o'clock today, Nish? Sorry, I can't remember the exact time.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. So I apologize. So everyone's got time to have a nice bite and get ready for that. So, you know, please do attend that if you can. Just looking at other questions people may have come up with. Well, I'm looking for questions. Amma or Millie, I don't know if you want to make some reflections or, you know, answer some questions that were raised in your mini workshops.
Yeah, hi. So thank you everyone for participating in the discussions, really interesting. Just picking up on one question that came through on the chat that I've answered, but in case you haven't seen it, there was a question about where you can find further sources of support. There is a list in the back of the guide. Mental health first aid England also have resources that you can signpost colleagues towards, but also when you're looking at those organisations, have a look at their own useful links pages, because you might find further, and if you need more niche support, that they can be good sources of information. I think one of the discussions we were having earlier on about gaining senior buy-in was, you know, the challenge in some organisations of doing that. And I think, you know, your organisation may need to start with something simpler, which is why I think through Race Equality Week, you've got multiple opportunities to engage with taking action. If you're not quite ready for Safe Space, there is the Big Promise. There is the digital badge campaign. You know, organisations are on different journeys through diversity and inclusion. Not everyone is that advanced. They might just be beginning, or they might not even recognise that they need to be addressing diversity and inclusion issues. So, you know, do think about how ready your organisation is and what action is, you know, the first step towards them on the journey towards making change when it comes to race equality.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to.
Sorry, go on, Amma, please go.
So yeah, no, I just wanted to add, just following on from what Millie said, that yes, I agree that, you know, from the two conversations or the two groups I've been, the journeys are very different. And I think that, you know, using Safe Space could be the start of a conversation to gather information as to how you then continue your journey, or it could be an additional to, if you're in your journey, whether it's advanced or midway, to help revisit some of the actual how you can get some tangible actions to actually make things work. I think that some conversations that occurred around, well, sometimes the board can feel too senior and people might not want to disclose or talk in those groups, or feel that they have to act and behave a certain way. And I think that you could try and dismantle that, or, you know, get people more at ease if you probably meet with the group collectively beforehand to gather some of their thoughts. And this is something the facilitator can do. So in the actual Safe Space sessions, that facilitator is playing back some of the scenarios and situations to then enable the conversation to then happen there in the room, rather than the conversation start from that in the room. You know, and I also think that from a senior perspective, yes, we're saying board members and C-suite, because ultimately they're the ones that are the leadership. And most of the time when we have leadership saying that they support it, it's more the words that they say than the actions that they do. You know, but ultimately you also have different leaders in teams, so line managers, directors, which I feel are on the ground in terms of the operational and the day-to-day. So again, it's sense checking to see what groups you should have first with these workshops. So you could ultimately start with line managers and directorates, and then do something with senior, C-suite and stuff later. But I think the key thing is to reconnect with your C-suite so that they understand and know what's happening, so that they can ultimately be held accountable in some shape or form and responsible in another way. So that was something else I wanted to add. And in terms of resources, yes, Millie's correct. We've got a plethora of resources on our website, Mental Health First Aid England. And we also released a guidance last year around supporting people of colour and Black people in the workplace. That's what I just wanted to add.
Great, thank you. Answer some questions. So the 1800, someone asked, what percentage are global? So I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but just say, I think the majority of them are like UK based, but many are international global organizations. Quite a few of them, I understand, have linked up with America this month because it's Black History Month in America. So it's given them quite often they haven't been able to, because, UK would have had Black History Month, in October. So it's a chance to unite with America. So, and we understand a couple of companies maybe doing safe space in both across the pond, as they say, but some have, European bases. I think we've had some Swiss company contact us. Exactly. Logo, yes, you can use the Safe Space and Race Equality Matters logos when you're promoting it internally, to encourage people to join, and obviously you can direct them to our website for people to find out more. People have asked a really good question about how do you sort of learn from each other or share best practice. So I guess the mini breakouts, and I do mini because I appreciate everyone thought they went too quick. Is a starting point, and the reason they're quick because we're conscious people don't have much time, and we wanted to pack all this in. We could have done it for 20 minutes each, but we just think the take up might have not been so good. But maybe we can learn from yourselves on that. What we'd be very happy if you go to our info@raceequalitymatters.com email and or even in the chat now, suggest ways of how we can get everyone to communicate with each other. So I'm sure there's some kind of apps where we can do that. What we are looking at is having like a Q&A forum where people can help each other, because we're not the experts. You are the experts, and we know some people are on step 7 in the guide, some are on step 3, and some on step 0. So any ideas to learn from that. What we'll also be doing down the line is having another gathering where people that might have got further down, we can spend a bit more time in the workshop facility, because you don't need us to go through this guide. So I think we've had about most probably in the last sort of 3 months 400 organizations register and or attend the Safe Space workshops. One thing we'll also look to do is any organizations that are coming along, please do let us know your success stories. We want to know what's working, because as you'll see from the guide, which and Emma's points in there and Millie's points in there, it's not just one way of doing this. There's different ways of doing it. And what we might find is, and what would be very interesting to know is which facilitator works most effectively, an external, a trained, or an internal. And again, does it work well for just organizations with a small group of staff in one office or multi-site? So please do share us your stories. And can I just say, don't worry about I'm going to say getting it wrong. It's not going to be perfect. Care about the people's well-being. That's absolutely crucial. But have a go. If we don't have a go, and it's going to feel uncomfortable for us as project managers, but as we said, we have to get uncomfortable on that. So I think that's as I said, the Safe Space facilitator training is at 3, and you can go online as you would have registered for this and access that. We may be able to subscribe, but it might be worth having a go in case a few people don't turn up. Any other questions? I'm just looking at loads of messages coming here.
Javed, there've been a couple of questions about where people can get the resource pack.
Yeah. Okay, so if you go onto the website, raceequalitymatters.com, under Race Equality Week, there's a section called Safe Space. If you go down there, and you'll be able to access the pack, and it's in 3 parts. One part is like an introduction to context of why Safe Space. There's reasoning behind it, which Mental Health First Aid have given their observations as well. The middle bit is the 11 steps, which Millie did a fantastic piece of work for. So credit there. And then there's also the resource pack where we said, access to mental health first aid, some stuff. CIPD have created some tips and templates for your terms of reference, etc. Agenda. So the whole thing is there. So hopefully, is there. But again, get in touch with us if there's anything missing or you think we could do anything better. I think yeah, Nisha's kindly just put the link on there. Did you pick up any more questions, Millie? Thank you for helping me. No. Okay.
Not so far.
Okay, so
there's no more questions. I don't see any new ones.
Brilliant. Conscious of time, what I am going to do is, if we can, it's less than 3 minutes. We just want to show you the big promise. So the big promise was co-created, and instead of organizations signing charters or these statements, is these we've broken organizations into 4 groups: C-suite board level, allies, senior leaders, and ethnic minority colleagues, and we've created a magnificent 7 promises for each one, and you just have to choose one. You can choose more than one, but we're saying tick one, choose one of these promises and deliver on it. Imagine an organization of 10,000 staff if everyone did it. So if you can look at the video, it just shows the process, and hopefully you guys can champion this too. Thank you, Nish. Thank you. Okay, so and that'll be available on the website. So again, you can share it to colleagues, show how easy it is. So these are some of the organizations collaborating with us. We are a not-for-profit, and yeah, we need funds to keep developing these solutions and running these workshops for free. So if anyone wants to make any donations, or an organization wants to become a funding partner, please help us. Someone said, can we have these sort of sessions every sort of 6 or so weeks? We'd love to do that. Again, part of it is the funding, the capacity to be able to do that. But we will look to have another one where we can catch up and people can share best practices with each other. Next slide, please, Anish. So thank you to all of you for attending and your valuable time and sort of like, yeah, a step in the right direction, or in another step in the positive direction. Big thank you to Amma for Mental Health First Aid England for being fantastic support and giving her time up again for us today, and also for Millie from Must Do Marketing, again giving up her valuable time, and yeah, they've given their time up for free on this, so please thank them. So I think that's all for us. I'm just going to say one thing that's came up in one of my groups about the psychological safety is sometimes the use of music could be maybe helpful. How do you remove the are key, but also having a pre-chats with people, before meeting. So it's all about the supporters. If I don't know you had a child or someone's going to go and do it into a big pitch or big meeting, how would you support them to make them feel as comfortable as they can? Good luck with everyone. Keep us posted. Do connect with us on LinkedIn, social media, and email. And we hope to see you soon. And yeah, make the safe space work. And let's be the change. Thank you. Bye all.
Take care, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.